So everyone knows that one of the easiest ways to go and generate appointments is through cold calling. As long as you have enough confidence, you know which tone to use, and you know what to say, then you can easily book 5, 6, 7 calls in a day if you put in the time. And it requires basically no money to start. Most people have a phone, and it doesn't require a whole lot to go and invest in some kind of software where you can do this on a little bit more scale and a little bit more professionally. But of course, you need to know what to say. And oftentimes people struggle with what to say. They have maybe an opening line that might make sense or might have got them to speak to a few decision makers. But in actual fact, it's really about what comes after that really truly matters. And that's what I'm going to go through in this video today. I'm going to show you the exact cold calling script that I used to use, and it's also the cold calling script that I give to my team so that they can go and book appointments for me. So what I have here is a document going through the cold call script that I have, and I've blurred it all out because I don't want anyone to just sort of skip through this. I want to go through this one by one. And so obviously the first thing you want to say is the actual opening part, right? The opener. And so every single time that you do a cold call, it makes so much sense and it's so much easier if you have the person's name. If you know that the person you're calling, who owns the business that you're calling, is called John, and you start that conversation off, you want to say, hey, is this John? Because if it isn't John, then you need to go and find John. If you get a gatekeeper, a receptionist, whatever it may be, they need to go and get you to speak to John. And so if they do say yes, if you're actually on the phone with the decision maker, then we can go into the opener. And so one that I've used quite a lot and it works really, really well is you say, hey, this is Ben. So you say, hey, John, this is Ben. We haven't spoken before, but can I just explain why I'm calling? Okay. The reason this is good is because if you're calling up a local business, if you're calling up someone where customers might call this number, they might be thinking this is a customer, right? This is someone who wants to buy something from me. And this can, people might think this is like, a bit of a bait and switch technique. But if you just instantly say this is a cold call or something like that, which is quite popular, then I tend to find that can have a little bit negative consequences, right? It's getting a little bit old. People have heard that one. But if you just say, we haven't spoken before, but can I just explain why I'm calling? That could be literally anyone, right? It creates so much curiosity there. And so 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, people will say, yes, okay, like what do you want, right? One that a lot of people use will say, I'm honest, this is a cold call, can I have 30 seconds or would you just rather hang up now? This is very, very, it's been used a lot. I think a lot of people that do cold calling just default to this. But one that I have used in the past was, say something like this at the end. You go, I know I'm a salesman, it's really, really terrible, but can I just have 30 seconds of your time? Something like that, right? So that can freshen up a little bit, but it's basically something which I see repeated again and again and again. A lot of people are going to be in niches that have been, there's a lot of competition, home improvement, real estate, those kind of ones. And so that kind of opener, it can make sense, and it can work, but of course I just think it is a little bit overused at the moment. Now, the big thing is if you are trying to call someone and you say, hey, is this John? And they say, no, it's not. Can I take a message? Then you're on the phone to a gatekeeper. You're on the phone to a receptionist. And oftentimes, it depends on the niche, but you will come into quite a lot of gatekeepers, quite a lot of receptionists. And your skill at being able to maneuver around the receptionist and around the gatekeeper is crucial in terms of your success. And so oftentimes people will just try to pitch the gatekeeper or the decision maker, which is just a completely terrible idea because one, they're not a decision maker, so it doesn't matter if you impress them or not, they can't go and make that decision for you. And if you do impress them, it doesn't mean they're going to route you through to the decision maker. And two, these people are trained to make sure that salespeople do not get past the phone. And so if you go by the conventional route of, I'll just drop you some information, if you just send this over to John, it'll make sense, blah, 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 it's not going to work. What you need to do is do something which is completely different than what everyone else is doing, and you just need to act like you already should be there. And so if someone calls you up, for example, and your job is to make sure that salespeople don't get past but relay important information, you need to make sure that this person thinks that you have important information. And so for example, if someone called you up and they said something on the lines of, I'm looking to speak to John. Is John there? Yep, me and John have got a very important meeting. We're scheduled in for now. I just received an email from John, something like that. Tell a little white lie and they're much more likely to put you through because if they're thinking, this person is important, they know John, John's going to be upset with me if I don't actually go and forward this call through to him, right? Another thing you can do is just basically laugh it off. If they say something like, are they expecting your call? You can laugh it off and say, well, I hope so. no, or something like that. Because at this point, you're basically just assuming, or just basically making the point across that something has been scheduled. So I mean, I would assume so, or I hope he has actually thought that we got the call, or something like, you could say something like, well, I hope he's remembered, or he hasn't forgot, has he? Something like that. And at this point, someone is much more likely to route you through. Now, this isn't going to work all the time, and you can have some completely shocking moments where you do go and you use a technique like this and the person just sees through it. It does happen sometimes, but you're going to get through to the decision maker far more often than just asking the receptionist to route you through, or even worse, just going out and pitching them in the first place. And so once we're through to the decision maker, then we want to pitch them. Okay, now the pitch is very simple. A lot of people think it's this super long 2-minute script, right? But all you want to do is just convey your offer, and your offer really is going to be a risk reversal. It's going to give some kind of confidence. There's not really space for you to talk about case studies here. Maybe you can mention that you've done this over 100 times or something like that, but at this point it's just about making sure that you convey your offer to the people that is on the phone, the decision maker on the phone. And so something like this, you might say, call out your niche. So we work with roofing companies in the UK, a specific niche there. You might even go one further and say, roofing companies in the southeast of the UK, something like that, roofing companies in London. And we get them 10 to 20 qualified leads every single month. That's obviously your offer, risk reversal, and they only pay for the leads that we generate for them. So we don't actually make profit until our clients have the leads they're looking for. If you'd be interested, I can just quickly explain how we do that in 20 seconds of your time, right? So this bit here, of course, this is the risk reversal here. They only pay for the leads to generate them. We don't make profit until they have the clients they're looking for. And then we are basically giving some kind of permission-based question here. We're not saying, would you like to know more? Are you interested? If you'd be interested, can I just quickly explain this? 20 seconds of your time. And by giving that specific time and saying this is only going to take 20 seconds, what you're doing there is confirming to the person that it's actually not going to take much of their time. But if you're just saying, can I just tell you more? You have no idea if this person's going to be talking for the next 5-10 minutes. And so you're more likely to say, no, I'm pretty busy with this. You're more likely to get an objection from this person. And so that's why we say the 20 seconds. And so with your offer, just state who you help, where those clients are located. So, roofing companies in the UK, roofing companies in London, the actual offer, give a number here, how many qualified leads you can get them. And you can throw in as many buzzwords as you want, pay on results, pay per lead, anything like that. Just something which makes your offer seem as good as it is. That's going to be the thing that actually gets you through to the next point. And someone's going to say, yeah, sure, you can go ahead and explain it. Once we've done that, then we move on to the explanation. Now, this, of course, is going to completely differ for every single person, right? It's not going to be, every business is not going to do this. So this is going to be very specific to your niche. Now, one thing that we knew when it come to roofing companies is that they would pay for leads, sometimes £100 for leads in the UK. And what would happen is that lead would just go to nothing. They would call someone up, they would barely answer the phone. And when they did answer the phone, they didn't get anything from it. And this would happen time and time again, where they would pay for a lead from some kind of lead marketplace, like bark.com or something like that. And what would happen is the industry got very tired of low quality leads, right? Leads that just weren't answering the phone. And so by putting this into our script, we're then sort of pre-handling that objection. And it's something which we knew that a lot of people in the industry were, suffering with. And so if we go and use that, then we know that we're actually hitting on a few pain points straight away. We're actually, pre-handling that objection, and it's just going to give us a much better chance of actually getting on to the next point of the call. And so what we're saying here, we have a 2-step process. The first step is we generate the leads. And as you probably know, when it comes to lead generation, a lot of leads are just time wasters. They're pretty low quality. So that's why we have a second step, which qualifies the leads out, filters them all out. So we only send you leads who actually meet the criteria that you need. Does that make sense? And so this whole headache of calling leads and them not answering is basically gone now, because we're going to take that off your hands. And so the idea to some roofing company that this is, that we're going to do this for them is super valuable. And they are going to want to do that, or want to have someone to do that for them, far much than if you just say, we can get you leads, right? And so we're really laying it on thick here. This is basically, like I said, a niche specific thing. And so you will probably know things inside of your niche, pain points that your industry has, that you can go and then reach on. And then again, we're going here with another sort of permission-based thing. So I was wondering if you were able to hop on a 30-minute Zoom call so I can let you know more about our process. Again, we're giving a specific time here. We're not just going to say a Zoom call, 30-minute Zoom call. Most people can spare 30 minutes if they know it's going to solve such a big problem. So the next part of this script, once we've gone through this, is confirming that they actually are going to show up for the call in some way, but not just saying, will you actually be available at this point, right? So you're going to say what time suits you, Monday at 10, whatever it is, right? So we go on and do that. And then you say, okay, I get an invite over to you. Oh, just before we hang up the phone, can you think of any reason why you'd want to cancel? I mean, I hope you're not going to hang up the phone and think, oh my goodness, I've agreed to meet a salesperson. Something like that. And so we're asking them, can you actually go to this time? Is there anything that's going to pop up at this time? But we're doing it in such a friendly way that it's not going to seem like we are just assuming that they won't show up, that they are, someone who, doesn't show up to calls, doesn't follow their schedule, etc. Someone who is quite not very punctual. And so we're doing it in a friendly way and say, okay, great, speak Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, something like that. I've seen people that do something like this where you say, as long as there's not like a massive earthquake, or as long as there's not an alien invasion, or can you definitely make it? It's all the same kind of thing and it has the same effect. But what you're going to find is that 99% of the time you're going to get objections, and this is really the key to making sure that you are booking a lot of calls, because if you can overcome your objections, it's going to be that metric. I always talk about it where if you increase this metric by 10-20%, it's going to increase your bottom line by 10-20% because you're going to get more calls, you're going to get more sales, and so it's super, super, super important. And so, like it says here, the goal with objections is to satisfy that the prospect has been heard. If they tell you that they're not interested, if they tell you something else, you don't just want to then carry on with your script and just assume they haven't said it, and you don't want to fight them on that objection that they've just given you, because most objections either are going to be smokescreens or they just take away from what you're trying to do, and now you're having a discussion about whether someone is actually busy or not, right? We don't want to do that. We want to stay on topic. And so prospects will give you a knee-jerk response, right? You will say something and they will find out that you're selling something. It's a cold call, and they'll just go, not interested, not interested, not interested, something like that, right? And so your job is to actually break that response, because they've just categorized you as a cold call, so their automatic response is not interested. But now if we go to a different response that doesn't come after what they say when not interested, then we're breaking this chain. So their usual chain is cold call, I'm not interested, they then say something, and then they hang up the phone, right? But if we come in here at this point and when we say something between after they've said not interested, and we say something that they've never heard before, or just completely catches them off guard, or doesn't make much sense, then they can't just go to the next part of that chain, because this is just an automatic response that they go through, and now they have to think. And if they have to think about your proposal, this is when you win. Because if you have a good offer, if you have something which is worth talking about and which you know is going to sell as long as someone actually thinks about it, then you're going to get a lot of meetings and you're going to make a lot of sales. And so the first one here is send me an email. This is something which I used to get all the time, just send me an email, right? Do not send any emails. Don't send any information. Don't send them any website. Don't do anything like that, right? If you hang up, you are never going to speak to that person again. They won't answer the phone. They are just not going to be interested in speaking to you, because they don't want you to send them an email. They just want to get off the phone, and that's why they're saying it, right? So don't send any email. And the goal here is to agree with them, tell them that you will do that so they feel listened to, and then move on to the rest of your script, okay? So an example of this is going to be, sure, I can definitely do that, and I'll send it over right now. While I'm getting that open, how many of your leads would you say are not qualified or low quality? This is again touching on that pain point that I talked about, so this can be niche specific, but we're just moving on to the next part of that script. So if they say, quite a lot of my leads are not qualified or low quality, then we can actually say, well, amazing, because this is what we do. We actually qualify those out for you, so you don't have to deal with that. This is something that you might have experienced before, blah, blah, blah. And then we're back onto our script and we're having that conversation about the service again, whereas now they wanted you to send an email, but now we're having that conversation because we asked the question. And the vast majority of people will just answer questions if you just ask them. It's the same kind of thing where if you just hand someone something, oftentimes they will take it off you because it's just their automatic response. If you just ask them a question, then they're going to answer it. And especially when it's such an easy question to answer, like do you get many not qualified leads? Yeah, a few. And then you can have that conversation. Oh, we can sort that for you, right? And so you'll see this is like a recurring theme with objections, of how we're basically listening to them, then deflecting, and then carrying back on with our script. And so the next objection here would be, I'm not interested. And so at this point, obviously, when someone says they're not interested, it's very, very abrupt. It's not really a smokescreen as such, because they're just telling you it's a no. So you need to create a pattern break, right? The prospect likely hasn't even registered what you're actually selling to them. Like I said, they're just gone in this generic, I'm not interested response, okay? And so the not interested is just their go-to response. And so responding with something which stops them from giving their go-to response is the key to getting them think, and therefore break this pattern, this sort of monkey brain pattern that they have. And so if you say something like, if someone says, I'm not interested, and you say, John, I didn't think you would be. Now, how many leads are you getting each week, right? That's such a weird and unique thing to say, because if John hears that and he thinks like, why would he think that I wouldn't be interested? That's such a weird thing to say. And so now he has to think about that, like, wait, like leads, we're getting like 10 per week, something like that. And so now he can't just go to his usual response, and you're basically just doing something that he's never heard of before. And so if someone says, I'm not interested, and you say, John, if I had £1 for every single time someone told me that, I'd be rich, or something like that. Now let me ask you this. It's just something that's just so out there and just completely different. You're not challenging him on the fact that he's not interested. You're just completely pushing it to the side and then carrying on. And because you're doing it in such an abrupt way, in such a different way than he might be used to, then he has to respond. He has to think about that, because he doesn't have a generic response to what you've just said. And so then the next objection is, I'm busy. So this is basically just someone telling you to go away. And this again is another knee-jerk response. We want to break the response and we want to ask a solid question. So same process as usual. Someone says they're busy. You say, well, I knew that. I knew I wouldn't be speaking to a business owner if they weren't actually busy. When I hear a business owner is busy, it usually is because they're spending either too much time managing customer orders or putting a lot of focus on things that can be easily outsourced. In your case, which of those applies the most to you? So this is one of those questions, binary questions, where we're giving two pain points that we know are common in our industry. So one of them likely will fit to the prospect here. And again, these can be changed based on the niche you're in, the industry, and understanding your niche is going to be the key to a lot of these. But because it's binary, we're not saying, do any of these apply to you? Because they could just turn around and say, no, they don't, right? But what we're doing here is we're saying which one of these makes the most sense, because there is a ranking, right? There could be none of these, which is basically all the way down here, which could be their response. But then there also could be like a level 1 and a level 2 of like, this is how much they agree with it, right? Out of 10. So if it's the one that's level 2, well, this one applies more to me. So they're going to pick one, right? And so then you can start to dig deeper into that, right? Maybe you can find there's a better pain point that they have or something like that. And if you tie these in again with what you're saying up here in the explanation, I didn't really do it for this one. I wanted to be a bit different than what I used last time. But then we're going to start to pull on that thread a little bit and find a little bit of pain so that we can go and actually say, you know what, this looks like a pretty good fit. Let's see if we can book in a call here, because I think that we can actually help you to solve this. Would you be up for that if you had 30 minutes? And then you book it in, right? So the script, it's pretty fluid. It's not just like a if this, say that. It's almost the opposite of it. You want to be, pretty flexible with what you have to say, because if you're doing it if this then that script, that's basically what they're doing to you with their sort of like knee-jerk responses. So you don't want to be doing that. You want to be just pretty fluid, just have a general script that you want to follow, and then every single time that they pull you away from it, just make sure you're going back to the script, so you can just keep going along the script that you're trying to do and just continue with your questions so that you can obviously get the booking in. So if you're looking for more clients for your agency, first link in the description. It's not a course, it's a done for you process. So, it's not no 997 course or anything like that, no free training. It's just a video of me explaining what my company does, how we've done this many times before, the kind of results that you can expect. But yeah, I don't really care if you click it or not. I'm probably going to make these videos for a very long time, whether you do click it or not. So yeah, but if you did like the video, like it, comment, subscribe and all that. And I will see you in the next one. Cheers.